Welcome to our sixth session of Serial Entrepreneur Club. Very excited to be doing this on the great startup club on Clubhouse. Today it's all about building a community for your business. And we wanted to take it from two different perspectives. One from someone who's very successful at it outside of Clubhouse on Facebook, Instagram, and another person who's been very successful on Clubhouse. And the first person I will mention here is Michele Van Tilburg. She's actually the president of .club and also the CEO and the largest shareholder of Meowingtons. Next, we have the great hiker himself, Ed Nussbaum, who has created Talk Club, Community Club, OG Club, and Startup Club. And I think there's a few more there. Sorry, Ed, if I missed a few. And of course, we have Rachel, our co-host, and she's the one recording today for the first time. She's actually filling that role. And she's also the blogger of Serial Entrepreneur Club. I brought Karen. Where's Karen? I'll get you on stage in a minute, Karen. Karen's head of the EO chapter in South Florida, and she's our moderator in training for new sessions. And also, of course, we have our lead moderator today, Jeffrey Sass. So over to you, Rachel, for the Rachel recap, and then to Jeff to moderate.
Thank you, Colin. Hey, everybody. We're having a very happy day over here at Serial Entrepreneur Club. So far, every session with SE Club has been dynamic, full of knowledge and value, and featuring exceptional guests and speakers. We're so grateful to you, our listeners and contributors. To recap our session from last week with Zendu CEO Lil Roberts, we focused on using Clubhouse to scale your business. Here are 6 tips for exactly that. 1, get a hot domain name and web extension that aligns your business and messaging. Use engaging on-brand titles in your rooms. Feature your clients in a big way to talk to the topic and to speak to testimony about your business. Amplify what you're doing outside of Clubhouse on Clubhouse. Invite influencers into your rooms and embrace monetization on this platform. For the nit and grit details, I've written up a tidy blog for you all. Hop on over to serialentrepreneur.club or se.club for short to get the scoop and to check out our upcoming sessions. Remember to follow me here on Clubhouse to receive invitations to our regularly scheduled sessions every Friday at 2. And finally, just a reminder for this room, practice kindness with one another, avoid interruptions. Our philosophy at SE Club is that we give to get. So please, no pitching, no plugging, no selling. With that, I'll hand it off to our lead moderator today, the one and only, extremely talented Jeff Sass.
Thank you, Rachel. Clearly, my reputation exceeds me, but thank you for that anyway. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us. For those who are listening, you'll notice that the hand raising is off at the moment, but about halfway through this session, and we go until 3 p.m., so at around 2:30, we will open up the hand raising and invite people up on stage to ask questions. But the first half, we're going to hear from Michele and Ed and talk to them directly on stage. And remember, if you do come up to ask a question, please acknowledge that you're okay with being recorded. So today, we're really going to focus on how Clubhouse is both a conversation starter and a community builder. And we're excited to hear from both Michele and Ed. We'll start with Michele, and I'll ask Michele to tell us a little bit about Meowingtons and the community you have and how you got it. And then we'll go on to Ed, and then we'll take some questions from the panelists. So thanks very much. Thank you all for coming today and joining us. And Michele, I'll leave it to you.
Thanks so much, Jeff, and thanks to everyone who's listening today. So, yes, we're going to, at least tell you our 5 top tips over here at meowingtons.com, which now we actually have meow.club and miltonthecat.club. How we've grown our audience to be over 1.4 million Facebook followers and over 600,000 Instagram followers. So just diving into it, we're all about cats. We're all about the welfare of cats and the cats and our cats people. We don't like to say we're owners. We're actually, we're owned by our cat pets. So without further ado, just diving into what we see as the top 5 things that folks can do to generate a community. So our first tip is this, the social good. For us, we take this extremely seriously it is what we, live and die by. Basically, we have a motto at our, on our business. It's basically, you shop, we give, they purr. Everything that we do it in a very authentic way. We sponsor cat rescues. We donate to cat causes, and everything to make and help the cats live healthy. So it's a really big deal with us. Our everybody on the team, everything they do is all around that motto, and it's all for the social good. Number two, what we like to do is we like to be totally tapped in to where our core audience is and understand and deliver content and products that address those passions. So, for example, we're extremely diligent on content over here on our social media channels as well as on the website. Things that we do are articles. We do at least one comic a day. Everybody can check that out if they like. It's completely free of charge. It's also shown on our Facebook channel as well as Instagram and on our website. You can sign up for that if you're interested in checking it out at miltonthecat.club. We also do at least 4 social media posts a day. The interesting thing for us is we really try to keep a balance between adding, value and selling. So we do very little selling because for us, our core objective is to really build the audience by offering entertaining content. So that leads me to the second point, which is our content strategy. Our content strategy, and this is after years of experimentation, is focused around humor and what I would call, edutainment, knowledge. So our humor comes in the majority, I would say about 75, probably closer to 85% of our content. And then the knowledge component comes around our blogs, where we still have a very, friendly tone to help people help cats, as well as, in anything around like health and welfare and just general education. Then moving on to our next point, all this sounds like it might be easy, but it actually takes an extreme amount of time if you want to really grow organically, which for us has been always our notion. We don't buy followers, we don't buy influencers, etc. So it's taking us, well over 5 years to get to the point where we have this many followers. And we are very careful to listen to our followers. They give us lots of good feedback, and we actually take the majority of it. And then the next but not least is our team. And I would just say, to everybody out there, this is, probably the most important component for us. We have a team that's extremely passionate around cats. We have a team that's very dedicated, and it really comes through in the content. And I honestly don't believe that we would have been as successful at building a community if we didn't have this. So I strongly suggest to anyone who is really serious about building a community, whether it be on or off Clubhouse, that you really pay attention to, who is building your content, and that they're really, in alignment with what your goals are. It's very obvious if they're not, and it's very obvious because your rewards are followers if they are. And then last but not least, for us, it is important to monetize. It's not always at the top of the team's, priorities, but it's the way that we pay for this website. It's a way that we pay for all this quality content. For us, it's an ever evolving, strategy for us. We've been able to start to introduce, new products. We're always looking for quality products, like we said, that support our passion and our motto, which is the health and well-being of cats. We've fortunately, we were able to introduce what, many have said are the world's best cat trees last holiday season, and we continue to iterate and build out products. So that's it at a high level. Just sharing with you our journey and some tips that we've, implemented into our business to build this massively engaged community. If you're interested in checking us out, you can come to Meow Club. We're starting to start some rooms every Saturday.
Thanks, Michelle. Michelle, thank you. Before I go to Ed, just real quick, can you give us a sense of the size of the Meowingtons community outside of Clubhouse?
Yes, so we have about 1.4 million Facebook followers, and it's growing all the time. And we have over 600,000 Instagram followers.
Great. Thank you very much. I just wanted to put that in perspective. And now, Ed, first of all, thank you so much for joining us here today. We appreciate it. And going from a fairly large community outside of Clubhouse, I'd like to turn the floor over to you to tell us more about building these great communities inside. And for those of you who don't know Ed, he was an OG Clubhouse member, and in fact has the OG Club, as well as Talk Club, Community Club, and the club we're all here in today, Startup Club. So Ed, thank you so much for joining us, and I'll turn the floor over to you.
Hey all, first, thanks for sharing some of the stories of other communities. And in the end, everyone has a different approach, and mine has always been, as long as I'm spending time on Clubhouse, why not I try to make it a little better place for myself and others? And so the clubs are really just there as a catalyst and infrastructure layer to make it easier for people to find each other, connect, and do things together, which the Clubhouse is already good at, just trying to help it further along. And so Startup Club is really just the club for people to make a club to make it easy for people to find each other who are doing different things in the startup ecosystem, and to make it easier for them to find each other, learn from one another, work together. And so it's been kind of inspiring to kind of put that infrastructure there in place. So as Clubhouse grows, more and more people are finding value out of Startup Club because now they can more easily find one another. And it's worked tremendously well. I mean, just from one metric alone, I think there's probably well over $50 million of venture and angel investing that have come through people who've met through Startup Club. So that's kind of inspiring. And all the other clubs that I've started kind of the similar type of theme of, as long as I'm spending time on Clubhouse, what can I do from like an infrastructure layer to help support other people? And so Community Club has 30 amazing admins who are doing their best to welcome new members, to help people find their way on Clubhouse. And a lot of these people were out there doing things on their own. And so a lot of it was just spotting the people who were supporting the community, and then Community Club was supporting the people supporting the community. So instead of doing rooms of 10 people, they could be doing rooms of 100 people. So the people spending their time helping, they could help more all at the same time by being organized in that club. And all the other clubs are kind of a similar theme. And so it's more just trying to make that difference, trying to be that catalyst, trying to provide that infrastructure layer. And so it's kind of a different take on community, because it was more just trying to be that catalyst infrastructure, help the community self-assemble and work together and learn from one another.
Great. And Ed, you've been involved in building communities in different areas and industries long before Clubhouse existed. Are there things that are unique to Clubhouse that you found that you do differently, or things that make creating a community a unique experience within Clubhouse versus outside of Clubhouse?
Yeah, there's always differences, but I think the similarities are, at least my approach, like prior to this, I helped run some really big groups and pages on Facebook, and those were centered mainly around the Grand Canyon. And so Grand Canyon Hikers Group, I think, is around 50-some thousand people now. The Havasu on Havasu Falls group is, I think, around 100,000. And all those groups were just designed as community support forums to help everyone learn from one another. So it's kind of a similar theme of you find existing tools, put a little effort into kind of being that catalyst, building that infrastructure so people can help one another. And so that principle is kind of the same on Clubhouse, but of course, different medium and different things. And so Clubhouse, it feels like a fundamentally new and unique animal in the world. being it ephemeral, being it audio. And it's just been kind of fun trying to figure out how to adapt things from other platforms, things that do apply and don't apply over here. And the general themes and principles do, and kind of the details slightly differ.
That's great. Thank you, Ed. And just to reset the room quickly, for those of you who are just joining us now, this is Serial Entrepreneur Club within Startup Club today, and we're talking about building a community on and off Clubhouse. And we're hearing from Michele Van Tilburg, who's the CEO of Meowingtons.com, a very large cat community, and of course Ed Nussbaum of Startup Club and OG Club and Community Club. And I'd like to see if anyone who's on stage, we've got some great panelists with us, Paul and Gary and Norm, and if any of you have any questions for either Ed or Michele.
I have more of a question and I don't know, maybe potential value add for Michele. Since you guys are posting 4 times a day, I mean, that's a ton. One of the things you had mentioned, I think it was the last point, I should have written it down, but I was walking around, so I apologize. You'd said making sure that like people that are posting on brand. Like we do a ton with nano influencers and getting content, like user generated content. Like, do you see that as a crucial portion of your strategy, or in general, just user generated content? Like I'm always intrigued to see how other brands are doing that and working with, their community to start getting like UGC.
Yeah, it's a great question. For us, we do have an ambassador program where we leverage and work together with our ambassadors to create content. Typically, it's of photos, not so much of posts. But you bring up a really great point, Paul. I mean, this is an area that I really do want to move further into. It sounds like you do as well over the next year here, because clearly the community, especially ours, have been engaged for so long and so deeply. I know they will really, help us kind of like increase the frequency, and I would think the quality.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm always just intrigued to hear what other people are like. What we've done in our business, like we do not have 600,000 on Meowingtons for Insta. I think it was like 14 for us. But I was able to track some story views like that our network has done, and we've had in the past 18 months 9.8 million views on stories just from our nano influencers. And so I'm always intrigued to hear like how people are doing what they're doing. I feel like we have a good program in place, but I'm always looking to up level. So I mean, we could connect on that too. Just I want to pick your brain, and I'm sure we can give you some value on our end too.
Yeah, thanks for that, Paul. And as a reminder, I do see a lot of party hats in the audience. So if you're new to Clubhouse, one of the greatest ways to improve your experience is if you hear someone speaking, if you hear someone on stage and you like what they're saying, you should definitely tap on their profile and follow them. And that's how you start to curate a better group of followers for yourself, by following people whose information and input you appreciate. And speaking of that, Paul, you brought up UGC. It's kind of interesting because in other platforms, people struggle to get people to contribute user-generated content. In Clubhouse, the interaction we do, all of this, what we're doing right now, arguably, is user-generated content, right? We're opening up rooms, and everyone who contributes to that room is contributing to the content. Ed, what do you think about that in terms of content and Clubhouse?
Well, it's another unique nature of Clubhouse. The group discussion dynamic is, as I think most of us discovered, kind of a different thing. Just the very subtle interface things within Clubhouse promote a whole different type of conversation. Where in the real world, if even just the people on stage were trying to be in the same conversation physically, it would be kind of difficult. It would probably break off into maybe 2 different discussions just by physical proximity. So that alone is unique, especially when you have stages like 30 people. That'd be really hard to do, to have everyone in a similar conversation in the world, but it's possible in Clubhouse. Similar with the mute button, where taking turns speaking, doesn't always happen in the real world. So there's a lot of small things like that make it easier to create the content together in a way that the real world doesn't really enable, just by the mere physics of how close you are to hear someone speak, the dynamics of the taking turns. but also it's one of those things that I think a lot of people are maybe more comfortable speaking than trying to compose that perfect tweet or compose that perfect photo. And so all of a sudden you have a lot of people participating who might not otherwise have in other social media, because Clubhouse doesn't feel like social media. It feels just social in a good way for the most part. And so that there's a lot of unique dynamics that make it different, where more people can participate. And then the other interesting thing about Clubhouse is it seems to give extroverts the energy they need, but introverts don't feel overwhelmed in most cases. So it's kind of an odd level playing field between extroverts and introverts that also might not happen in the real world. So there's a whole host of different things like that that kind of add up to be something special. And user-generated content, in the terms that you described, is something kind of different because of all those dynamics.
Yeah, I think those are great points, Ed. And this notion of certainly I've witnessed some of the most orderly conversations I've ever participated in within Clubhouse. Definitely not how it is in person. And I agree with you 100%. There are people I know who are not very comfortable speaking on a stage, in front of an audience of people in the real world, who have come to be very comfortable and very good at speaking in front of rooms here within Clubhouse. So it's a very different experience. Those are great points you brought up. Thank you. Anyone else on the panel have some questions for Michele or Ed? Yep.
Yeah, I do, Jeff. Michele, I understand how you took the community, you built it up, and you were able to monetize it. And hopefully I'm not putting you on the spot, Ed, but how does an entrepreneur like yourself build such a large community? How do you monetize that community? And what are you allowed to do within the guidelines of Clubhouse?
Can I ask a clarifying question on top of that, Colin?
Of course.
So on monetization, was this the plan from the start, or was it an organic thing that just happened? Because, I guess the planning behind it, because there are communities that start and it's all just about organically helping. It sounds like, Ed, you run a bunch of those in the Grand Canyon hikers and all that stuff. And then there's people that then they say, well, I can monetize this. So was it like a organic thing where you're just all cat lovers and then you decided to monetize it? Or was it an intentional from the start, we're going to start a cat community and monetize it?
Yeah, it's a great question. For us, we always did want to monetize, and we always believed that we, should take the very community philanthropic approach, which is actually true for us. We believe that the best way that we can help the cat community is by donations. And we didn't have deep pockets by any means, so we knew we needed to build up the e-commerce portion of the business so that we could donate. And I think I might have mentioned it. If I didn't, I will. Our main mantra is you shop, we give, they purr. And it really is true for us. We, sponsor cat rescues, we sponsor cats, donation fees, etc. So it really was a means to an end. And it's just worked out very well because of the passion that we have. And we try to contribute, by offering content on and off, the platforms. So I think I mentioned we have Meowingtons.com, which is the e-commerce site. We have MiltonTheCat.club, where we take signups, free signups. People can get our daily comic via email. Of course, they can see it on social media as well. And we actually just launched Meow.club as a means to start to, see if there is any interest from the Clubhouse community, and talks specifically, not commercial, but specifically around welfare for cats and well-being. So it's
great. And Colin, did you get your question answered there?
No, we got Ed on the ropes now. He's going to answer it.
Yeah, all the communities that I've helped spark or catalyze, it's always about, connecting everyone with everyone else so they can learn from each other, which is a benefit to me and everyone else. And so to me, there's way more than one way of getting value out of a community. Money is one of them, but ultimately, to me, it's always if you do a good job of being that catalyst, providing infrastructure for people to connect with one another, the magic happens for you and everyone else. And so, Grand Canyon Hikers, we never directly monetized, but that led to a great business opportunity, which sparked my last business. And so, by being present, by helping other people connect, that I also got that same benefit. And so a lot of it just kind of being the catalyst, being the change I want to see, to be able to run into the people that I want to talk to more. And usually great things come out of that for myself and others. So no explicit plans to monetize any of those communities, but usually opportunity comes out of that. And so it's not necessarily a traditional approach, but as going back to user generated content, where it sounds like some communities already described in the room, it's very much like, yes, you are actively creating content. To me, I am kind of passively creating infrastructure and making it available to everyone else, and that benefits me and everyone else. And so, along the way, I've had the opportunity to meet, through Startup Club, meet some of the people I've always been fans of, and watch their businesses and startups succeed. And so that's a huge win for me, to be able to say, hey, would you like to come speak to Startup Club? We have a huge audience that would like to hear from you. And so getting to share stage with some heroes, and Colin just made an introduction to one of those as well. So getting extreme benefit out of Clubhouse and Startup Club, just from the people I've had the opportunity to meet and the people that people and opportunities those lead to.
That's pretty amazing. I know from the 90s when we launched Two Cows. Two Cows, by the way, was a software download site. I know now it's considered to be more of a domain name in telecom, but back in the 90s when we launched Two Cows, we made it free, and believe it or not, bandwidth was very expensive. We just believed in sharing software globally, and we launched that, and then the opportunities came. 3-4 years later, someone came along and said, this is a really great service and we want to buy it, and we were able to sell it for a very nice profit.
Ed, are you at liberty to talk about that path that you took? You said that an opportunity arose and it spawned your recent business. Are you at liberty to dive into that a little bit? And Jeff, if you have something else in mind, feel free to take it away. But I'm intrigued, and I feel like that would be valuable for the audience, as well as me as a speaker here too.
Yeah, really long story to do justice, but I'll try to do a short version of it. What most people think of the Grand Canyon is actually Grand Canyon National Park, and what's now Grand Canyon National Park was actually home to a lot of Native peoples that Teddy Roosevelt gently kicked out. And most of those peoples are still in the Grand Canyon region. And the Grand Canyon is a big place. The park is only a small part of it. So east of the Grand Canyon is Navajo Nation and the Hopi Reservation. And just on the south from the Grand Canyon, west of Grand Canyon National Park is the Havasupai tribe. And west of that is Hualapai, which is better known as Grand Canyon West. And so through Grand Canyon Hikers Group, which originally started as with most things centered around the Grand Canyon National Park, I got to know a lot of the Native peoples around the canyon, and the Havasupai people were the ones that were primarily living what is now Grand Canyon National Park, and they, as with many Native peoples, they were very mistreated by the U.S. federal government, and they were seasonal people. They would live and farm in the canyon during the summer, and go up on the rim to hunt during the winter. And when they created the park, they got trapped in a side canyon just west of Grand Canyon National Park, which was one of their seasonal villages where they would farm during the summer. But it wasn't an area that had enough agricultural land to really support the tribe. It was subject to flash floods, and they weren't allowed to go up on the rim anymore. So it almost literally killed the tribe. But it turns out, as with many things, the unintended side effects, this side canyon got trapped in is one of the most beautiful spots on Earth. And most people have probably seen photos or video of Havasupai and Havasu Falls. It is like blue-green Hawaiian-style waterfalls in like Sedona Red Rock in the Grand Canyon. And so it had always been kind of like a hiking, swimming hole, summer weekend destination for people in Arizona who kind of knew about it. But as social media took off and people started sharing photos of Havasu Falls, Mooney Falls, Beaver Falls, it just, any one of those falls would be a destination its own right. and demand started going up. And the village the whole tribe is maybe about 900 people now. About half live in the village of Supai in the Grand Canyon, which is one of the most remote spots in the U.S. It's the village is 8 miles from the nearest road, and to get there, it's basically the elevation change of about 2 Empire State Buildings, and, over that 8-mile hike. And that where the road ends, that's like 67 miles from even the nearest gas station, which is on wildfire land. So it's really remote. But social media had it take off, and the whole tourism office was basically like 2 to 4 people answering phones, taking reservations. And back in 2017, last time they did phone reservations, the phone system, the whole village collapsed. People were dialing 1,000 times for like weeks just trying to get through. And so because of the Grand Canyon Hikers group, and because we had done a group trip down there with a bunch of people from the Facebook group, I got to know the tourism office manager and seeing issues both from their side of it was chaos in the office trying to deal with that kind of demand, and then seeing it from the customer side through the Facebook groups of people just utter frustration trying to reach and just make a reservation. And there were a lot of inefficiencies, a lot of problems, I actually had been pulled a team together to work on a completely different startup, and we saw the struggles that visitors were having, the tribe was having, the tourism was having. It's like, hey guys, we'll be happy to help. And so that became the beginning of my last business, of basically applying technology and social media to kind of help solve what was originally just the unique problems of the Havasupai tribe and the tourism department. And so it was essentially building what was equivalent of a Ticketmaster scale system for the tribe's reservation system. And to put in context, like we had no idea what the demand was. We just knew that it was big. And so when we first went live on February 1st, 8 a.m. in 2018, that first second we had 500,000 people hit the servers. And we sold the entire year out in about an hour. And the significance of that was huge on so many levels. One was that for the first time ever, the tribe actually had good inventory management. Oh, the context is that the product is 2 things there. One is actually 3. They have a campground, and the campground is between Havasu Falls and Mooney Falls. Havasu Falls is this beautiful 100-foot high waterfall. Mooney Falls is this epic 200-foot waterfall. And in between those 2 waterfalls, you have this nice meandering blue-green water along the creek. And each side of that creek for a mile long is a campground. It turns out that it's the highest demand campground in the world for very good reasons. It's epically beautiful. And so we put in a solution to make campground reservations. And they also have a little small 20-room lodge in the village. And so as of this year, the lodge is now online as well, because both of those now, we've managed to basically cut out like probably 99% of the phone calls, so people can actually get through on the phone lines to actually have customer support and service. So our solution basically became preventive customer support, and became a way for people to actually not have to dial thousands of times for weeks on end trying to reach it. And also allowed the tribe finally to have kind of more better inventory control, which changed a whole bunch of things, because it used to be like have 1,000 people down in the campground over the weekends and no one during the week. And so just simple tools like that, kind of helping to re-engineer like the whole process of the tourism industry. So that's kind of where the last business started from. And that started from just being more attuned to the canyon, being more aware of it, because of the Grand Canyon Hikers group. And because we had facilitated a group trip from people from the face group down to Havasupai. So that gave me a lot of insight to both the product, the problem that could be solved by technology and social media, both on the tribe's end and on the customer end, and happened to have the team that could do it. And so we went and did it. It was a lot of fun and made a big difference. And then each year we kind of refined the system, made it better for visitors and for the tribe. And then there was a whole host of other things, which makes it a longer story, but that's probably enough for the intro to what it was. But so it wasn't really monetizing it directly, but because we had that big Facebook group, We then also had a communication channel to help get the word out about the new systems, to help get customer feedback as an ongoing focus group of what people wanted the system to do, while we were also talking to the tourism office and trying to understand their needs. And so we were able to see the full set of the problem and really put a good solution in place for everyone.
That's a great story of entrepreneurship, Ed, because, you know, we're talking about serial entrepreneurs and startups, and there's a lot of serendipity in being an entrepreneur, and you were the right people at the right place at the right time to be able to create those solutions for the location. And I think you touched on it earlier, Ed, too. In Clubhouse, one of the appeals is the serendipity. There's the opportunity to come across and meet people that you wouldn't ordinarily get to speak to. And also, I think, as you pointed out, Ed, with the creation of your clubs, there's also an opportunity for sort of planned serendipity, where almost you can influence some serendipitous things to happen by joining rooms of people you'd like to meet, by contributing as a speaker. And so you have this unusual combination of collisions and serendipity, but also the opportunity, if you're smart, to try to manipulate and plan those serendipitous moments. So I think that's one of the appeals of Clubhouse. So before we open it up for questions, I just want to see if Norm or Karen, anyone else on the panel, have any final questions for Michele or Ed, and then I'm going to open up now for everyone to raise their hand if they'd like to ask a question. And remember, please, when you come on stage to ask a question, we are recording this session, so please state your name and acknowledge that you're okay with being recorded before you ask your question.
Yeah, just a quick additional thought to what I was saying earlier, because I haven't really tried to tell that story much, so it probably came out on, kind of a little disjointed. But in the spirit of building community and the topic of this room, one of the things we did was, when we started working with the tribe, is basically created that Have a Sip on Have a Sip Falls group, Facebook group that I referred to, and that was kind of the similar thing that we're doing with the Grand Canyon Hikers group of community support, so that everyone could learn from each other, keep each other out of trouble. Make the most of their adventure, because oftentimes this was people flying across the world, hiking into a very remote region, and so on. But everything we did with that too was kind of develop community, and including creating monthly groups. So we had a Have a Supai Falls May group, so people who were going in May could get to know each other even before the trip, and there's a lot of friendships that developed in that. So it was a way to have a community on Facebook and enhance the actual real world experience. So people felt more comfortable. They knew other people going. They could hike in together. They often shared campsites together. And so all those things, by adding a layer of community to an existing business, often made a huge difference. And so the initial community led to that business opportunity, and that business opportunity I always kind of viewed through the lens of community. So we kind of help community build among visitors to Have a Supai, which made a big positive difference for them and also for the tribe, because then people were more likely to stay out of trouble, because they had, they knew other people going on the trip that were also down there. So all those things added up to be something way greater than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, the communities fed off of each other, almost like a symbiotic relationship. That's great. Norm or Karen, do you have any questions? Anyone in the audience, if you'd like to raise your hand now, I believe hand raising is open, and you're welcome to ask questions for Ed or Michele or anyone else on the panel.
I've got
Norm?
For Michele. It's Norm. You've got a ton of followers on Instagram, and I also know that you publish a cartoon of Milton every day. Do you ever utilize those cartoons so that it points over to Clubhouse? Can you incorporate sort of a Clubhouse event into those cartoons?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know the answer to. We are going to start some rooms around cat focused well-being topics. I hadn't thought about incorporating the comic on it. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that. They are popular. Well,
if I looking over at your icon right now with Milton and the podcast mic, I mean, that's hilarious by itself. And then, people, you've got a huge following. Well, I'm not sure, 1 million people on Instagram, and I'm not sure how many downloads. I know Milton itself has downloaded about 2 billion downloads, but you've got leverage there. And I think there's an incredible way to leverage that, get the people, not all the time, but once in a while, just kind of feed them Clubhouse, feed them the podcast. And then on the, I don't think you guys are doing a podcast yet, but I'm sure that'll end up happening. I know with our podcast, what we've done is we do a podcast on the Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then we get everybody together on the Monday and we bring the guests on, and then we create a Clubhouse room and we get them to answer the questions. And that's something that, we've been able to find very interactive. There's a lot of shy people that, they it's okay to type, but they don't want to come onto a podcast, especially if it's a video going live on Facebook. But this is such an incredible platform that so many people will come up that would never talk on a podcast, that will come on here and ask questions. So again, that's kind of a long-winded approach of kind of what we're doing. But if I had the huge following that you have and the niche, because that's the other thing that has to be looked at here, you've got a brand, and being able to grow that micro brand on Clubhouse is something that I think is 100% achievable, especially with this new sort of paradigm shift. So I think it's really cool. And I got to say it again. I really love that little icon of Milton with the, I'm going to call it the Yeti mic. Okay.
That's right. No, it's a great idea. People do have lots of conversations about every little nuance of the comics. I like your idea about having the community come on and chat about it. It would be fun. For sure.
I love it. And I mean, I want to know too, like the evolution of Milton. Like, was he integrated as a strategy? Like, we're going to do this funny comic about cats. Like, was that from the start, or did that just evolve as Meowingtons grew?
Yes, great question. He evolved naturally, and actually, this past year we gave him a friend, Millie. Actually, she came about during the isolation due to COVID, but it really was a natural progression because we wanted content that people would enjoy. And what we find in our persona is that cat people really, it's not just like buying things for your cat, it's really being really active in discussion and enjoying each other's stories.
I love that. I was just gonna say, like, on that point, like, Norm told me about this, I don't know, probably 2 months ago, Norm Milton. And ever since then, I've been thinking through for our brand, Bow and Bell Littles. We are like hyper niche. We sell reusable swim diapers, and so we're super seasonal. But our people, generally speaking, are busy moms between mid 30s ish, have 2 or 3 kids. And I've just been thinking through ever since then, like, I want to do something like that. Start a comic and maybe have feature baby or busy mom or something like that. I'm rambling at this point, but I just wanted to say that I'm inspired.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. I think that just to reset the room, we're here at Serial Entrepreneur Club on Startup Club today, and we're talking about building a community on and off Clubhouse with Michele Van Tilburg of Meowingtons and Ed Nussbaum of Startup Club. And raise your hand if you're interested in the question. I see someone now, and I'll bring you up on stage in just a moment, Jillian. And I just want to mention, when you think about the comic, now the comic is a visual item, and we're in an audio platform, but I think it's inevitable that we will have character voices and people in character hosting rooms and speaking on Clubhouse. So if you had a voice behind Milton, you could have Milton appearing and talking. And I actually wish I was a voice actor right now, because I think there'll be a lot of work for talented voice actors on Clubhouse in the coming months. So I think that's inevitable to happen. So I'd like to welcome Jillian to the stage. And Jillian, as mentioned, we are recording this, so please state your name and that you're okay to be recording, and then go ahead and ask your question.
So my name is Jillian, and yes, it's okay to record me. So anyhow, so I got invited to Clubhouse through a friend, and I'm in the process of building a fintech platform, for a remittance platform for the Caribbean and Latin America. for the immigrant and refugee community to send money back and forth and to receive payments. So when I got into Clubhouse, I was thinking, oh my God, another thing my friend wanted me to to join. So I joined, and the moment I joined, it tells you how many people you know on this platform. And then it was like 200 and something people. I'm like, what on earth is this? This must be a cult. So I saw a lot of VCs that I know on here. So I called them. I'm like, what are you doing on this app? So I started joining in different rooms, and it was really amazing. But in the process, we are working with the World Bank. They're supporting us on this venture. And we had a question about just a week before I started Clubhouse, how are we going to do like a test market with the product for the immigrant community in America? So while I'm on Clubhouse, I go and I see there was all these Caribbean, clubs. So I went in and I started to speak, and I said, oh my God, would you be interested in being, part of a test community for the product? And within 48 hours, I had about 500 people signed up to test the product. I could not even believe it. So then I thought, okay, let's create a community around, because every immigrant I want to cry. Every immigrant have a story about why they're sending money back and forth to their families. And I thought, wow, why don't I take the people who reach out to me and create a community of Clubhouse with the World Bank, and we create a community of stories, of personal stories of why they're sending money back and forth and what's the reason for the money back and forth. So I started sharing this with a VC, and then I shared it with a UNDP, and they were completely blown away. So I got them onto Clubhouse, and I just did a talk with 100 women in Davos, and I shared about Clubhouse. I shared about the power of all of these startup clubs. And I'm telling you, since I've been in Clubhouse during the course of the pandemic, I was really depressed about, how we are going to, really make the startup work during the course of being locked down. And what I got I was in Aspen with some friends, and I said, you know what, I'm just going to shut down this startup, give the people back the money who invested, and be done. I got onto Clubhouse, and in 48 hours, when I started checking into the rooms and meeting people in product, the UX, UI people, I got really re-inspired again. I've connected with the most amazing people to help this product really happen in a very big way. And I think if it wasn't for Clubhouse, we would not be where we are today. So I just wanted to share this. I want to share about the community of a Clubhouse, which we're working on right now. It has really empowered me and, really energized me and re-inspired me about what I'm doing, because I'm about to change a lot of people's life in the Caribbean. So I just wanted to share this. And Ed, I sent you an email and you have not responded. So I am requesting that you respond to my email. Thank you very much.
Sorry about that. Well, thank you for sharing what you shared. That's inspiring. But which email address did you send it to? The club email address or my personal one?
The club email address. I'm not looking for money. I'm just looking to have a talk in the club. Yeah,
all good. Yeah, I don't. That's not me running that, but I'll follow up on it. So thanks for giving me that up.
Thank you, Jillian. And that was an example of planned spontaneity, right? Right there, right on stage and live. But also what Jillian pointed out is the diversity of communities and discussions and topics that you can find in Clubhouse is truly amazing. And so if you're smart about it, you could find people to talk to about virtually any topic you may have an interest in, whether that's a personal interest or a business interest. So there's real opportunities there. Again, if anyone has questions from the audience, please raise your hand. We're happy to bring you up. We've got about 9 minutes left before the top of the hour. And here we have a hand raised, so I will bring.
And I was going to ask Karen. Karen, you have run a community of entrepreneurs, and you've often said it's like herding cats. And I just wanted to sort of get your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So hi everybody. I want you to know first and foremost that this is my very first time on stage. I've been in many Clubhouse rooms, and I came on this one at the behest of Colin, and he promptly asked me to come on stage, and I said, okay, let's see what's going on here. So anyhow.
And Karen, you're okay to be recorded, correct?
Oh yes, I'm fine with that, of course. So I run an organization called Entrepreneurs Organization, And it is an international organization in about 61 countries. And I run the South Florida chapter, one of the biggest chapters in the world, made up of over 250 members. So I've been working with EO for probably about 13 years, and Colin is so right. It is like herding cats. Just think about a lot of high value entrepreneurs whose businesses are over $1 million or more in revenue annually, and just trying to get them all together to plan for events, for get-togethers, just to be a community and to do things. Yeah, it is a little bit like herding cats, but you know what? I've been doing it for 13 years. So obviously I love it. And I've made a lot of amazing friends. We have a lot of wonderful, wonderful entrepreneurs in the group who have been just doing great things. Colin is one of them, as a matter of fact. So I've known Colin now for about 13 years and familiar with his several businesses that he's exited from and he's working on right now. So yeah, that's Karen, and I'm done speaking.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you for sharing that, and thank you for saying you were done speaking. People will hear that. That actually started, for those of you who are new to Clubhouse, there are actually people who are listening to Clubhouse who are actually deaf, and they use transcription. So they're reading things on a screen when they're listening to rooms. And one way of them knowing when someone is done speaking is when someone states that. So we just have a few minutes left. So I want to give Ripul, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, and Francis a chance for a quick question, and then we'll go to Colin and Rachel for our wrap up. So Ripul, go ahead.
Thank you so much for having me on the stage. So let me quickly introduce myself. So my name is Ripul, and I have over 16 years of IT experience in building website, web applications, and mobile applications. And over these years, I've got chance to work for few Fortune 500 companies like Sony, Hitachi, Dell Technologies.
Ripul, did you have a question for Michele or Ed or any of the panelists?
Yeah, the question for the moderators here is, I'm planning to start the community and I'm new to Clubhouse. So what would you advise me on this thing?
Michele or Ed, would you like to answer that, or any of the other panelists?
Well, I think we need to understand, like, what is your idea first around the community?
So I'm planning to build a community for people who want to start up, or they are solopreneurs who are looking to build e-commerce or online marketplaces, so that I can help them to achieve their minimum viable product.
So probably this club, the startup club that Ed created, if you follow and become a member of that club and then follow the rooms that are being scheduled within that club, probably a lot of the people that you want to eventually reach are going to be showing up and having discussions in many of those rooms there. And if you're new to Clubhouse, the best way to get started is to start by listening, get a sense of what's going on in the room, and then when you have something to contribute, raise your hand to become a part of the conversation, and then you'll get to be known amongst that community.
Yeah, in addition to that, I would just say, make sure that, like Jeff said earlier, you're going to get your hallway curated based on who you follow. So if you're wanting to build more in the tech and the startup space, then, I mean, excellent advice. Make sure that you're following Ed, be a part of the startup club. See what you can do. Basically, Clubhouse, that I've seen, my experience, is all about who gives the most value, just giving as much as you can. And Ed explained it perfectly. I mean, this obviously was a Facebook thing, but if you just continue to give and give and give, the law of reciprocity is going to kick into effect. And then eventually, if you're looking for business, people are going to find their way to you. So I would say, follow people that that you can gel with. And what I've seen is I've created true friendships on this app that I am now following people in rooms like Colin I've never met in person. I plan on one day meeting. But then you develop this affinity. You see when they're speaking, they get to know you. They know that you have good advice. And that's one of the best ways to start building your, following if you're wanting to make an impact in helping people do startups is through giving and following.
Yeah, thank you, Paul, and that's great advice. So we just have a few moments left. So Francis, if you can be our last question and make it quick if you can, because I want to give time for Ed and Michele to give final remarks, and then we wrap up with Colin and Rachel. So Francis, welcome. And please state your name and that you're okay with being recorded. Francis, if you're there, unmute yourself and ask your question.
Oh, thank you so much. Dr. Frances Richards here. Yes, I am fine with being recorded. Just want to say thank you for this amazing community. I'm a newbie, less than a week on Clubhouse, and my question would be if one person, because I know we're limited on time, could just share an amazing story from being on Clubhouse.
I can do a quick one. I've already talked. Norm, you go.
No, mine was just, it's something very simple, but it shocked me how many people once, and I think, I'm not sure if it was Paul or if it was Jeff, somebody said about sharing. And so I speak in the e-com space. People, follow me in e-com. I come into these rooms, I listen, sometimes I get called up and I start talking. One of the things that absolutely shocked me was how many people actually checked out and started following Instagram. And, I might've got the odd person here or there. You'd be on, talking, and all of a sudden you'd have 30 people just, click on your name. Now that might not be a lot for some of you out there, but to get 30 or 40 or 50 Instagram followers. And I was wondering I was talking to my son, Kelsey, who does my social media, going, what is going on? And we kind of tracked it back to any time that you were talking on Instagram, people were following, if they checked out your profile, it had to be that. And that's exactly what it was. So there's a lot of things that happen. And that's one thing. The other thing is one of the, Paul and I are partners. And one of the things that we talk about is before you do anything, you have to become an authority. Once you have authority, there has to be trust. And if you want to make sales, you have to have both of those. Authority and trust equals sales. And with Clubhouse, you become an authority. So you can talk. Now, there's not a lot of people talking about brand right now. And I think that is something that will happen in the future. People will start talking more and more about their brand. We don't know where this is going to go, but I think that's going to happen. And people are going to be like, if you've got a kitchen knife and you've got that brand, you can have talk about kitchen tips, benefits, features, whatever it is. And I'm really quite interested to see what's going to happen. And I'm seeing it happen just in my e-com space. So if all of a sudden I'm on and I'm talking like I am now, I'll get some questions. I'll get questions on e-com. I know Paul's got business. He doesn't pitch at all. I don't pitch at all. And all of a sudden people are contacting us because we're an authority in something that just because of Clubhouse, which is just it's absolutely amazing to me.
It's a great place to share your knowledge. Thank you, Norm. So just before we go, Ed, do you have any final statements? And thank you again, Ed, for taking the time to join us today. We really appreciate it. And it was great to hear your backstory about what you've done with the hiking too.
Yeah, no, just all good. Thank you for the room. Thank you for the questions, and pass it back to you.
Great. And Michele, any final comments from you? And thanks for sharing the Meowington story as well.
Just thank everyone who's attending and contributing. I continue to be amazed with the quality of engagement and audience on Clubhouse. I've kind of coined it, where the connected go to connect. I'm, just astonished at the level of giving that people do and how accessible people are to each other. So it's a great place to hang out.
Thank you, Michele. So before I hand it off to Colin and Rachel for final remarks, I just want to thank everyone for coming and remind you that if you like what you heard on stage, please follow the people on stage. Also look around you in the room, see people who are near you and consider following them, because if they're in this room, it means they're also interested in this topic just as you are. So with that, thank you very much. And Colin, I'll turn it over to you for your final remarks.
All right, that's awesome. And cats, diapers, hiking, Caribbean, IT, they're all about creating clubs and communities. And it's amazing to see. In this session, I learned a lot. When I talk about websites, I say it's all about the content, stupid. When we talk about communities now, I'm going to say it's all about the value, stupid. Next week, we have another session on Friday at 2:00, how to promote yourself on your club outside of Clubhouse. We're so excited because we had an experience here with Serial Entrepreneur Club where we registered serialentrepreneur.club, and Google picked us up, and we're now #1 on Google for the term Serial Entrepreneur Club. And that's pretty cool. It happened after 5 weeks. I cannot underestimate how important it is to have a website for your club. And last week we saw the goodtimeshow.club launch, so that was pretty cool. Really excited to see that happening. We've had such great sessions, and you can listen to them all on our website at serialentrepreneur.club. And for those who cannot spell, www.se.club. Have a great day. Thank you.